14 for the rest of your life to rot in a jail cell, that's not justice in anywhere, you know? Our entire lives were taught 2 wrongs don't make a right. So how does 1 life for a life make a right?
The district attorney's office refused to talk publicly, but said in a statement they believe Brandon is capable of killing again. The California court gave the green light for the DA to retry Brandon again for first-degree murder as an adult. But this time, they've dropped the hate crime allegation.
They believe this is a very clear-cut case of first-degree murder, and they are standing by that, and they think justice has not yet been served.
And yet these jurors are convinced there is no jury out there that would unanimously vote for first-degree murder.
So if it wasn't white supremacy, what was Brandon's motive in your minds?
I just think he felt he had no way out from the teasing from Larry. I mean, he's a 14-year-old boy who was basically beaten, you know, from his dad half his life. So I just felt he had no other way out.
So Brandon would have been violent with anybody who was picking on him?
I think so.
What do you think happened?
I feel like Brandon was trying to rather really end the problem, not end Larry's life. I don't think he really thought that all out.
Victor, was it you who said if Larry had just left Brandon alone, he'd be alive today?
I think so.
Do you believe that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. All of you believe that?
Yes, we do.
I think that Brandon was so intimidated by his peers to think that he might also be gay, that he had nowhere else to go.
But the prosecutor calls that a gay panic defense, a legal strategy California courts were the first to limit because it essentially blames the victim for their own death.
You're not blaming Larry for his own death.
No.
What do you think happened?
I think that there was a lot going on, but I believe that Larry was being bullied. I mean, I believe that people were, based on testimony, calling him inappropriate names in a derogatory fashion. But I don't think that anybody was stepping in and doing anything about that.
These jurors felt strongly that teachers like Dawn Boldrin created a double standard, a lenient atmosphere towards Larry's eccentricities while ignoring kids like Brandon, who were troubled in other ways.
I think Brandon got sent home for not wearing a collared shirt, but Larry could come to school in, what, 2 or 4 inch heels?
The defense made a point that the adults let these children down.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I feel
Absolutely.
that 100%.
This high-profile case revealed a growing concern among many adults, especially educators, about how to properly handle kids like Larry.
Middle schools have a tremendous challenge. Their job is different than it was 10, 20 years ago.
Eliza Byard, the executive director of GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educators Network, works on anti-bullying initiatives. She feels teachers need to develop better ways to respond to kids as they explore their sexual identity.
The issues that all young people face have shifted younger. And absolutely, as young people decide to be open about who they are at a younger age, they are doing so in a context where adults need more support to know how to help the students in their care.
As for helping kids like Brandon, his mom Kendra has her own regrets. She's been sober for 6 years and even works in drug rehab. She says she's trying to make up for her mistakes.
What would you say to Larry's family?
How sorry we are that this happened. They don't get to go visit Larry, and I know that. And they don't get to go wrap their arms around Larry. And I think about it every day.
As Brandon approaches his high school graduation, his family is terrified of the day when he's 18 and transferred to an adult prison.
I make him work out.
Why do you make him work out?
Because he's not going to be in juvenile hall forever. He's going to have to go to prison, and I want him to be ready for it,
You want him to be able to defend himself.
Exactly.
As his mother, what are you thinking?
I can't. I'm so scared of the day that I have to know that.
If anybody went and talked to him, they would see how much of a little kid he is still today. Like, when I visit him, he is still very immature, he's such a kid.
Like Brandon's family and the locals in Silver Strand, these jurors are now wearing Save Brandon bracelets too. They also told us they're raising money for Brandon's defense for the retrial. And there's another person who supports Brandon, Dawn Boldrin, the teacher who gave Larry that green prom dress.
When you heard hung jury, what was your thought? What was your reaction?
I was elated, happy. And
why?
Because I realized those people saw a child. All the factors that were swimming around Brandon pointed to the fact that, hey, this kid was literally in the middle of a storm. 3
years later, Dawn says she still misses the classroom and her students. She may have started this trial as a witness for the prosecution. Perhaps not anymore.
The DA is talking about retrying the case. What do you think about that?
I think they're trying to save face at this point because they know they screwed up.
But Avery Lasky says no matter what the outcome, she hopes no one will ever forget her dear friend Larry King.
Some affected him for good, some did not do what they should.
This is a poem she wrote after he was shot and killed.
I thought he'd live, but then he died. And in the end, he made us cry.
Brandon McInerney later pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 21 years in prison. He will be 38 years old when he's released. Brandon's mom reports he graduated high school while in juvenile hall and that many of his high school teachers attended. Larry King's parents filed a lawsuit against the McInerney family and the school district, among others. It was later settled. Meanwhile, the California legislature passed a bill expanding the definition of bullying in schools and requiring all schools in the state to have systems in place for dealing with the issue. Up next, an adolescent boy, his adult mentor, and a shocking outcome.
A man's body's found buried in a shallow grave.
Could their relationship have led to murder? When we come back. It all began when a man with a gunshot wound emerged from the forest crying out for help. Police say he was the intended prey of a serial killer or killers. As the case unfolded, the story of how the victims were targeted and the relationship between the two suspected murderers sent chills down the spines of many, including one of the suspects' parents. In 2011, Dan Harris first reported the story of a teenager and the older man who some say had him under his spell.
How did this 16-year-old high school junior from outside Akron, Ohio, a wannabe cop, a big, lumbering, popular kid named Brogan Rafferty, how did he get caught up in alleged serial killings where the victims were recruited on Craigslist? It's a sensational case making national headlines.
Fatal scam, the deadly hoax.
Breaking news, a man's body's found buried in a shallow grave.
Is he scared? Of course he's scared.
Brogan's mother, Yvette Rafferty, says her son is in this situation because he made friends with the wrong person.
And there is a monster here, but it's not my son.
That monster, she says, is this man, 52-year-old Rich Beasley, known as Chaplain Rich, a self-proclaimed man of God who mentored her son for almost a decade and who now appears to be the prime suspect in this series of killings.
I feel like I failed, you know. Do you want the peer pressure of kids, or do you want them hanging around a chaplain and going to church and helping people? It was a no-brainer.
For years, Chaplain Beasley cultivated a reputation around Akron as a do-gooder. He delivered meals to the needy, ran this halfway house, and ministered to people in trouble with the law. But police say the holy roller reputation was a facade. In early 2011, Chaplain Beasley was charged with selling OxyContin, growing marijuana, threatening his neighbor, and promoting prostitution. When he was released on bail, he reconnected with his mentee, Brogan Rafferty, and that, police say, is when the real trouble started. On October 7th, Beasley allegedly placed a help-wanted ad on Craigslist, $300 a week to watch over a 688-acre farm in rural Ohio. 3 days later, he allegedly held a series of interviews with applicants at this local mall. One of those applicants was Ron Sanson, an unemployed construction worker.
When you met with him, what was he like?
He was all right. I mean, no bells in my head went off about him. Like if he's going to be, a mass murderer or something like that, which, he's turning out to be, I guess.
Sanson never got a call back, but said